All right, you beautiful humans. I am sure that I am not the first one to be staring at a blank page with a blinking cursor, not sure where to start, whether that is on a to-do list, although I do like to write those down, but I do a lot of creative soul searching and research that goes into these videos, and distractions are easy to come by, especially when working from home. But I'd really love to give you a few tips here to help you improve that productivity. Now, I know this may not seem healthy, and it is really hard to explain to someone if you haven't really experienced this for yourself. Because when it comes to the working because you need to, instead of working on something because you actually want to, I'll admit feeling a little uneasy, even unproductive, when that time specifically is allocated to relax. And I'm aware of it, and it is an ongoing work in progress. And these productivity tips do not have to always align with starting a business. They really don't. It could be anything from a new career path, which for me, I ended up going back to college as a working and married adult. And this took a lot of preparation and diligence to really pull off. But I am sure that we all have interests that may require some level of commitment to remain focused so that we can get the most out of what we're learning and get those results even sooner. And I'm certain you've already heard this before, but other tips don't really matter as far as productivity is concerned if you haven't established your why. And you can tell yourself that you want to be more productive, you want to learn more, you want to do more, insert anything else into that blank of more, but it really comes down to the why. So I'll use two examples of my own why for going back to school, one, and then my business why, which would be my second, which you might find that they're really very much aligned. And as a different career path, I had often been fascinated with the medical field, and specifically nursing. And after figuring out that I really wanted to pursue a career that allowed me to not only help people when they were at their most vulnerable, but to really be on the front lines of healthcare and to see what that impact had for that particular individual, even if the outcomes weren't always positive, but just knowing that I played a role and was present for that part of this journey. And of course, it is a field that I knew would provide a certain level of security due to the high demand for clinicians, which is definitely a bonus when starting and raising a family. But I knew it also offered a tremendous amount of flexibility of being able to work where I want, when I want, and any subspecialty that aligned with what I really wanted to do. And of course, that's within reason. And my second example here is that of being an entrepreneur. And that is that I really do love business and creating something that is just larger than myself, not just girth, of course, but concept and the value that it actually provides to someone or a group. And even when I had jobs, I was always thinking about ways to streamline systems, thinking about ways to save time and still provide a level of value to the client or customer that even the most simple or routine service made even the slightest shift for them, that it could be life-changing. And I know that I'm not saving lives here on YouTube, but I like to think of myself that like I can at least help move that needle ever so slightly for someone, that it could really shift their trajectory for something really awesome. And so my alignment is that I want to build something that provides this in a way that I can serve how I want, when I want, and work on projects that really do mean something to me. So you can really see how I've ended up with a parallel in my particular situation. Now, outside of my creative endeavors, I have put these two together, and I am still a practicing clinician that owns a business where I do get to do all of those things that I discussed on that particular why. And as far as the creative endeavors here, which is a separate business in and of itself, I can admit that right now, I make no revenue from this particular channel that started off as an experiment to see if I could really grow this from zero without any direct help from my main channel. But this project does exist within my media business, and I plan to grow with you on this particular journey and to share my knowledge that is the equity that I've actually built along the way. Now, I do recommend writing down your why, and I do think that it is fine to allow yourself some room here to adapt this as you move forward. But I definitely recommend writing these changes in vision on the why as really a point of reference. And again, I reiterate, I do think the why can shift. Just make sure to hold yourself accountable. Now, before we move any further, we've got to remove those distractions. And if you're working from home and you've got a leaky faucet to fix or a pantry to reorganize, well, let's just make sure to get those things out of the way. Let's get those things done first, and preferably on a day when you're not trying to get work done, because I don't know about you, but my pantry would certainly require more than 5 minutes of my time to reorganize. A house full of 3 boys, it's a full family here, and so it would take a lot of effort. Now, of course, the other obvious distractions are notifications, and which that can, of course, occur on your phone or a computer that you may be working on. And something I've set up with myself is how I manage email and the expectation with anyone that I'm working with. Now, I do have someone managing a couple of my email accounts, but I do have several that are tied to different businesses. So I'll share what I do for those accounts that I manage. And first, email isn't something that should require an immediate response. I can debate this for hours with you, but we're trying to be productive here. So let's just say that I set this expectation from the beginning that emails will be answered at a specific time of the day. And of course, I do set that up. I do create filters within my email so that these are labeled and archived either read or unread, depending on the context. I also use templates to respond to certain emails that often ask a similar or the same question. Having a tech channel brings in a lot of inquiries about sponsorships, product reviews, and so having like a disclosure form or a carefully crafted response that should answer those initial questions does help, because oftentimes there's just an initial piece of communication that needs to go out before we continue those conversations. And the other obvious distractions are those notifications on my smartphone. There are built-in tools and third-party apps that you can certainly research to help you filter those notifications or to completely cut them out for a period of time. And I do have mine set up for a short list of individuals that may bypass this just in case they need me. And because once those distractions are muted, then it's really time to start working in time blocks. And I recommend blocks of time. And I choose 90 minutes to be able to get that deep work done. And setting a timer can help hold you accountable. And I don't think that it really needs to be 90 minutes for everyone. But I try to avoid going any longer than this. And once you hit that allotted time, allow yourself some personal time to step away from whatever it is that you're doing. Go outside, get a snack, get some water, whatever you need to do so that you're creating some separation from the work. And I also recommend trying to avoid those 10 to 12 hour days, because there is just most certainly this law of diminishing returns. And I understand where you're trying to push through on a project or some launch. And there are times that this may be okay for those situations, but it's often not sustainable to do this day in and day out. And as much as I'm into the digital space, I'm very much into the digital space and automation as a tech reviewer, I do still go analog, and I love to write things down. And there's just something about putting pen or pencil to paper. And really for me, I know that I'll retain this more easily. I'll retain that information more easily. And there's also something really satisfying that if you've created a punch list, that you get to check those things off of that list. And this is a great setup for those to-do lists, is I would recommend not really outlining a list of an entire page of things that you need to do today. If you're creating an entire list of 10 or 20 items that you need to get done, this may set you up for failure before you even get started, because depending on the work that you're doing, you may only be able to get a few of those tasks done. And this is another point as to whether it's something that needs to get done today, or is it just 1 or 2 tasks that really need to get done as part of a much larger goal for the week or even the month. And so think about it if and how you can break some of these down into a more digestible task list. Also, you may hear 2 different perspectives, but I often like to get the easier items off of my list, because that's really helping me build momentum for the day. And as I go along and get deeper into my work, I can stay more focused, because it's not a lot of little tasks, but something I may need to really unpack and stay in that lane for a while to get it done. And for others, they may want to tackle the harder tasks first and then feel as if they can cruise downhill the rest of the way toward the end of their workday. And it really just kind of comes down to just making sure that you're holding yourself accountable, because those easier tasks are also easy to just push off for another day. Now, some of you might want to ask, but Kevin, because that's my name, by the way, what do you do about meetings and calls? Well, first, I've established a no meeting Monday in my particular schedule, because my philosophy is that how can I effectively meet with my teams on things that need to happen for the week if most of us haven't reviewed emails, voicemails, team chats, or anything relevant to help push that conversation forward to get those things done? And having this day blocked allows me to take advantage of that deep work to go through that communication and check those things that need to happen for the remainder of the week. And honestly, let's be real here. Much of that communication isn't about that particular week. It's often just a thread of what's occurring for the month or even the next several months. But this is something that you'll have to assess for yourself as to whether you're in an industry that may need that Monday meeting. And since we're on meetings, I do have specific time blocks that I schedule for those meetings. I'm very clear as to when I'm available to meet, and there are times where a quick call during the day may just be enough, and I do try to make these happen when I can because it can oftentimes prevent having to hold a full team meeting. And of course, that's really a tip I'd recommend, is that you can have several text exchanges throughout the day and emails, and sometimes those calls really do start to cut that down. And I would recommend, though, is writing down any notes of that call if you need to, in case you need to reference those later. And whether it's pen or paper or just something that you throw on your calendar where it states that you talked to that person, and then maybe those notes just happen to be in the notes section of a calendar app. And of course, lastly, is being patient with yourself. I have worked really hard to develop my routine, and it's not just something that you can jump right into from the get. It does take practice and patience to develop this routine. So give yourself some space so that you can reflect on why something isn't working and what you might need to do to adapt or make a change so that you can remain productive. I mean, an example is during the week, I run about 5 miles in the morning before starting my day. And for me, it's not a long run, but it's what I've allotted myself time for, during my work week. And of course, on that note, I have built up being a runner. So think about it in those terms. If you've never run, and then you all of a sudden try to go out and run 5 miles without any conditioning, you're probably going to be walking by the time you hit the end of your block. So be patient, work up to this, walk first, and then add in a little bit more to that routine each day and make those changes where you need to so that it fits and becomes your routine, and then it really just becomes your habit. So I would really love to know what your thoughts are, what's working for you, what's not working for you, any tips that you may have to share with the community. Hit me up in the comment section below or over on Twitter. You go out there and do those things that matter, and I'll catch you right back here on the next one.